3 years ago, Anne Ord, a modern foreign languages teacher at Bridgewater High School in Warrington, set herself a challenge. She wanted to make learning French grammar fun and creative, and she wanted to be able to monitor her pupils' work visually. The answer? To use actions as well as words.
When you're teaching languages, it's absolutely impossible to teach without using lots of visual clues. And we also use a lot of mime, a lot of gesture. We reinforce the meaning of what we're saying.
Visualising grammar and vocabulary with actions and sounds means Anne can immediately see which of her Year 7 pupils are taking part and therefore learning.
I can try and include everybody in the classroom, and it also gives me the very valuable ability to monitor whether or not everybody is actually participating and keeping up and has a good grasp of what we're doing. I think if they feel that they're succeeding, if they feel they're achieving, if they're finding it enjoyable, if they're able to have fun in the lesson, especially if they're people who sometimes find sitting at a desk a little bit difficult, that's going to be something that will make them feel that language is a subject for them.
Other teachers could take elements of Anne's technique and use them in class. You can find details on the Teachers TV website. Anne begins by introducing her Year 7s to the subject pronouns during their first half term.
On commence. Bonjour tout le monde. It's very important to move into the structure of language when the pupils arrive with us. So what I do is in the first few weeks of school, we draw on their knowledge of literacy terminology, and so I can refer to subject pronouns. What do we call the words for I, for you, he, she, George? They're pronouns, brilliant. They're standing in for the name. So today's objectives are subject pronouns, and I'll show them the movements which we have generated over the past few years, which are basically je, tu, il, elle, on, nous, vous, ils, elle. It's very traditional in that I will have them listen, but they will accompany their listening by showing me the relevant movement to go with what I'm saying. That way I can play around with it and I can ensure that their understanding is very secure. Copier en silence. OK, regardez. Je, tu. Je, tu. Je, tu. Je, tu. Je, tu. Je, tu. Je, tu, tu.
Anne moves on to introduce the pupils to their first irregular verb.
We quickly find that the subject pronouns don't really work without having a verb to go with them. You book? Oh yes, you book. George, you ruler? Well organised. What am I missing? What do I need? What do I need to make my I, you, he, she, one actually helpful in my language? What haven't I got, Alex?
You like say you rule instead of you have a rule.
Exactly. There I needed the word have. What's the word have? What type of thing is it? Verb. Well done. And the action for the verb is the same, whichever subject pronoun it is going with. So the verb movement, avoir, is always this grabbing. J'ai, tu as. Tu as. Oui, très bien. When I'm repeating it, one of the things that I have started doing is to sometimes do subject pronoun, subject pronoun, subject pronoun, and then the verb, because that's reinforcing that we have the subject pronoun and then we have this verb. Je, j'ai. Bien. Keeping the two things separate in their head is very important, particularly where you have j'ai for I have. So I'll reinforce that you have je, but j'ai. Because it is one single syllable, it's very, very easy for them to go from having learnt je to thinking that j'ai is in fact I. OK? Toute la classe. Je. J'ai. Bien. So all the time, what I'm trying to do is trace a memory pathway in their brain so that when they want to say I have, they don't even have to think about it, they're just going to say j'ai. And if they get stuck and they do the movement, that will prompt them to think j'ai. All the various techniques that I use in the classroom are designed to enable me and the class to repeat endlessly without them getting bored. For example, if we're doing it with rhythm, they're concentrating on maintaining the rhythm. Nous avons. Nous avons. OK, avec moi. Nous avons. Nous avons. Nous avons. Nous avons. Nous avons. If they're doing it with volume, they're concentrating on their voice getting louder or their voice getting quieter. J'ai. 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 J'ai, 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 j'ai. Or if we are concentrating on doing it in a round, they're having to keep their particular line going while other people are having something quite different going in their turn. Je, tu, je, tu, je, tu, je, tu. Il, elle, il, elle. Il, elle, il, elle, il, elle. OK, plus fort. Très bien, super. Et stop, très bien. There's always behind it the objective of lots and lots and lots of repetition without boredom creeping in. Frère Jacques, la 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 la. OK, toute la classe avec moi. Je, tu, je, tu. They find it really entertaining to start putting to these tunes, which they know so well, these new sounds, these new words and phrases that they're learning. It also means that I've got the opportunity to concentrate on the rhythm of the words, on the pronunciation of the words, to link the written form to the spoken form, and to maintain good pronunciation while they're doing that, but also while keeping them engaged with the task. Il est en, nous, vous, il, elle, nous, vous, il, elle, on, il, elle, on. I try to get to the point where they are working to produce the sound and working in pairs quite swiftly, because that means that I'm maximising their use of the language, and they work very well in pairs. Oh, Michel, les mouvements. Est-ce qu'on dit ce mouvement? Bien, très, très, très bien. It's really valuable to have at your disposition a range of techniques that you can use without having to get out equipment, without having to get out books, without having to turn on an interactive board.
Nous sommes très, très, très intelligent.
Well, it makes it easier to use the actions because, well, if you can't always remember the words, you can just think of the action that brings the word into your mind.
Je suis bavard.
I can remember quite a lot of the actions that we used because we did it so many times and it kind of drilled it into your mind, so you can't, when you do sing, like go through all your verbs, you can remember the actions.
Tu as 5 oiseaux.
If you were to come across a new verb, you could easily make an action to it to make the verb easier to learn.
Hilary Meadowcroft is a modern foreign languages expert with the Specialist Schools and Academies Trust. Last year, she visited Anne to take a look at her techniques.
I've actually trialled a lot of these strategies myself, and I found them to be great fun and very, very effective.
Copier et répéter. Je, tu, je, tu, je, tu, je, tu, je. Très bien.
In a language classroom, the teacher is a central resource. The lessons are often very teacher-led, and this methodology enables the teacher to shift the workload a little bit onto the pupils. It gets them working equally, if not harder, than the teacher.
Nous, vous, il, elle, nous, vous, il, elle, on, il, elle, on. Très, très bien.
I think it's vital in language teaching that we are we try to become more creative in what we're delivering to pupils to keep them engaged and keep them focused and keep them enthusiastic.
Anne has developed her techniques to include actions for a whole range of other vocabulary.
As our learning progresses, we extend the range of movements that we have. We have, of course, the movements that we have for verbs.
Toute la classe, avec moi. J'adore. J'aime. Je n'aime pas. Je déteste. Je ne supporte pas.
And then we've also brought in different movements for animals.
Une chat.
We've brought in movements for destinations.
La pointe de garde.
Then when the pupils get quite a lot older and they're starting to look at, for example, the past tense and the future tense, we'll still be using this same vocabulary of movements that we used earlier in the school.
So where did Anne get all the ideas for the actions from?
Some of the actions are very obvious and really don't need to be invented by anyone. Some of them have been contributed by students.
Some actions we came up with ourselves, such as être, to be, and I thought of that because to be, you are.
For the destinations, we had a debate about for aux États-Unis, should it be the cowboy movement with the lasso or should it be the Statue of Liberty? And the class decided to go for the Statue of Liberty, so that became the movement for the United States.
Tu voyages. Elle voyage.
You want to have a wider vocabulary, and if I have that wider vocabulary in movement, that's going to be helpful.
Allez.
One of the things that is particularly rewarding is when you find pupils can manipulate the language independently. If you can help them to understand how there is a structure, and if you understand the structure, you are a much more independent user of the language.
J'ai
un éléphant.
Il a les cheveux
Bleu.
nous allons.
Au bord de la mer en Espagne.
Is Anne convinced this sort of technique can work for all learners?
The kinesthetic learning addresses, I would say, the majority of learners. I feel that the movements, they're kinesthetic and they're visual, and of course they're hearing, so they're auditory as well. So there's such a range of teaching and learning experiences going on that everybody should be able to find something they can respond to.
One concern may be that high achievers in this group would get bored because they'd pick up the structures very quickly. But Anne changes the way that the activity is done. For example, she gets them to repeat the verb in different manners.
OK, avec moi, répétez. Féroce. Féroce. Énergique. Énergique. Sévère. Sévère. Élégante. Élégante. OK, vous allez travailler à deux personnes.
One. Crochet. Nous savons. Vous savez.
So she's maintaining their interest and she's actually bringing in extra vocabulary at the same time.
When I set out a few years ago to teach these verbs to Year 7s, I wasn't quite sure how much we would be able to achieve, and I was so delighted to see that in the summer term every single member of that class could sort all of these 4 irregular verbs. So I think that evidence really speaks for itself.